All right, everybody, we're back for UFC Noche or Noche UFC Grasso versus Shevchenko. Preview, predictions, and breakdown. No fancy intro today. I was going to have this out yesterday, but some things came up, so we're going to try to get it done for you today. UFC Noche or Noche UFC takes place this Saturday, September 16th from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is a big deal, man. It's a championship fight headlining a fight night, which we don't get very often. The one thing I will say is that usually if we do get a championship fight headlining a fight night, it's in the lower weight classes or it's a women's title fight. We'll get the women's flyweight or men's flyweight or men's bantamweight championships to headline these fight nights. If we do get a title fight, maybe we get one title fight a year. Not even one title fight a year that will headline a UFC fight night. The last one I can remember besides Grasso and Shevchenko would be, I believe it was TJ Dillashaw and Henry Cejudo for the first event on ESPN Plus for the UFC. I remember Dominic Cruz and TJ Dillashaw back in, I think, 2016, 2017. A lot of Demetrius Johnson fights, his little double feature with John Dodson, both those fights headlined a UFC fight night. So, it's usually the lower weight classes, but this is actually a pretty good card, and I think it's a good card from a betting perspective. I think there's a lot of opportunity to make money going into this card, and we're going to dive right into it. Now, there are going to be a few fights I skip on this card. I'm not going to talk about Zellhuber versus Giagos. I didn't have a ton of time to dive into tape for that specific fight, but at the same time, I feel like it's one that people aren't going to be too invested in, but if I'm going to give a pick for you, I would probably take Daniel Zellhuber to win that fight by a TKO. I liked his performance against Lando Venata. He looked good. He looked crisp. He looked clean. His footwork, his distance management, his combinations, the kicking game was on point. And Lando Venata's no joke. I know he hasn't had like the most successful UFC career, but the guy's a monster. And I mean, he dropped prime Tony Ferguson in his UFC debut. He wheel kicked, knocked out John Makdessi. So, Lando Venata is not an easy out for anybody. He's a tough fighter. He's a tricky fighter, and I feel like Zellhuber managed that with flying colors. And after coming into the UFC and kind of, shit in the bed for a lot of people, and people kind of lost hope in him and lost faith. So I'm going to take Zellhuber over Giagos. I would probably say second round TKO. I think he's going to finish him. I could see it go into a decision because Giagos is a durable guy as long as he doesn't get submitted. So, yeah, but I'm going to take Zellhuber in that one. Lupi Godinez and Elise Reed. I'm going to be honest. The only reason I'm not really talking about this fight is because I think it's pretty much 50-50. Like, I'm not saying that I think it's going to play out 50-50, but I think, with a lot of Elise Reed fights, you either pick her and she doesn't do that great, or you fade her and she makes the fight a lot closer than you think. And Lupi Godinez and Elise Reed, I think this is kind of 50-50. I think Lupi's the better fighter. I think she has better skill. I think she should be able to win the fight everywhere. But Elise Reed is tough. She's determined. She's durable. She'll push that pace. She'll move forward. And she will get in your face. And, she's not the best fighter from a technical perspective. But I feel like if she can make it dirty, if she can make it a dogfight, maybe she makes it a little bit closer. But I will go with Lupi Godinez to win this fight via I'll go decision. We'll go Lupi Godinez via decision over Elise Reed. So we skipped those two, and then we're going to get into the breakdown for the rest of the card. Up first, we're going to talk about a battle in the women's flyweight division between Tracy Cortez, who's ranked number 14, and the number 15 ranked Jasmine Jasmine. Listen, if it's a beauty contest, we all know we're going with Tracy Cortez, but it's not. It's a fight, and I really think that this fight is a lot closer. I mean, the line makes it seem close, but I feel like a lot of people are heavy on Cortez, and it makes sense. I think if the fight goes to the ground, that's where Cortez is going to have her best advantages. She's fighting a long, tall, rangy girl who's going to use her reach and distance, but also be able to close that distance and range and get in your face and try to rough you up in the pocket. But she's so tall and long. I backed her against Miranda Maverick, and she was almost a 3-1 underdog in that fight. And it wasn't so much because I believed Jasmine Jasmine was going to win. It was more based on the fact that I thought the line was completely off. I did not like the betting line, and I'm not going to bet a 4-1 or 5-1 favorite in most cases when it comes to, what's it called? Oh, I know, my God, I can't even think what I was going to say. When it comes to women's MMA, I'm not going to bet a 3 or 4-1 favorite in most cases. And I actually skipped one of the fights, so I'm going to go back and talk about that one after this one. But Tracy Cortez and Jasmine, here's the deal with Cortez. She's a really good grappler. She has a really good wrestling. She's very good settling into the top position. She likes to sit in the guard of the opponent, and she has a very heavy ground and pound. The one thing I noticed in watching tape is if Cortez is on top of Jasudavicius, she's going to be landing big hammer fists, big elbows. She's going to be trying to, if Jasudavicius controls the wrist, she's going to fold it over the top of that wrist control and bang that elbow right down on her face. And she has a lot of really solid ground and pound, and I think her ground and pound is actually heavily underrated. I feel like I don't hear a ton of people talking about it. But although she's a good grappler, although she's a good wrestler, although she has really good top control, it's the ground and pound that I think is one of her best aspects of her game. And the one thing I do notice is when she went and fought Melissa Gatto, she got put in some positions where she almost got caught in an armbar, almost got caught in a triangle. A few submission attempts against a girl in Gatto who is very, very solid with her takedowns, very solid with the wrestling. And that's the one thing I don't love about Cortez is that although she's a really good grappler, although she's a good wrestler, she does kind of give up her back in certain positions where I think a long, tall, rangy girl like Jasudavicius, who we've seen has good scrambling ability, like in the fight against Miranda Maverick, and she can threaten with submissions off of her back. I think that this is a little bit of a tricky fight for Cortez. I think the money line at this point, makes sense. It's kind of a pick 'em. It's pretty much 50-50. Originally, Jasudavicius was a big underdog. She flipped. The line was like -108, -112. Now we're back with Jasudavicius as like a +100, +110 underdog. And I think that's because people can't make up their mind. And that usually means that this is a fight that you shouldn't bet on. I like Cortez's game. I think if the fight stays on the feet, it's all Jasudavicius. I know that Cortez has good ground and pound and she has good power, but her setups with the striking on the feet aren't the cleanest. And to be honest, she doesn't even really strike on the feet. She likes to use the strikes to close the distance and get into the body locks, get into the double legs, use the strikes to change levels. And against a taller girl, that will work with certain takedown attempts, but a lot of the clinch takedowns and things like that, that's where it's going to work. But the doubles and singles, sometimes it's a little bit harder to get those on the taller fighters. You have to work with your inside and outside trips. You have to work from the double unders or the over-under clinch positions and look to trip the opponent out rather than shoot a traditional takedown. I do not think the head and arm throws work for Cortez in this fight. I think Jasudavicius is too long. She's too rangy. And if she messes up on that head and arm throw, she's going to give up her back. The one thing I do like, though, is that Cortez is good at scrambling, getting back to the top position. We know that Jasudavicius is going to threaten with arm bars. And I think the fight is close on the ground. I like the submission defense of Cortez. She's very good at keeping her arms in, keeping her elbows in, never flaring her elbows out, and she's very good at her posture. I think her posture on the ground is my favorite aspect of her overall grappling game. She's very good at keeping her head high, getting out of positions, using her hips very well. And, even if she gets caught in position, she's able to technically get out of them. And she looks like a very strong girl on the mat in terms of her positional awareness, her hip control, or not hip control, but her hip positioning and her hip pressure, and the ability to just get her head and get her body out of positions where there could be some danger. But she does put herself in positions as well. But like I said, she's good at getting out. I think Jasudavicius on the feet is going to win this fight all day. The long, rangy strikes, the combinations, the volume. I think that's kind of where Tracy Cortez has some trouble in this fight. I think she gets picked apart a little bit on the feet. And yeah, if it's a full-on grappling match, I think Cortez does edge that out over 15 minutes. But Jasudavicius is a good scrambler, like we said. We talked about the Miranda Maverick fight. She can get stuck in positions, but at the same time, she'll go for stuff off of her back. She's active. She gets into those scrambles, and her pressure on the feet, I think, is going to be a little too much for Tracy Cortez. I like Cortez. I think she does have opportunities to win this fight, like I just talked about. But I think Jasudavicius's range, her volume on the feet, her straight punches, the ability to just not let the opponent off the hook. Yes, on one hand, it's going to give those takedown attempts to Cortez, and that's where she wants the fight to be. But I think Jasudavicius is a little bit more competent on the ground and with her takedown defense and with her ability to scramble than people are giving her credit for. And Cortez has been gone for a little bit, man. She hasn't fought in a little while. And I'm going to go with Jasmine. I'm going to go with Jasmine to win this fight via 29-28 unanimous decision. I think it's close, but at the same time, I just see a little bit more of a stylistic advantage on the feet and her ability to hang with Cortez on the floor. So give me Jasmine to win via 29-28 unanimous decision. All right, now what we were going to talk about, I didn't get a chance to talk about Josephine Knudsen taking on Marnik Man. And this is a fight where I got to touch on it at least. You know, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I skipped it. That's my bad. I think it's because the UFC website doesn't have the picture for Josephine Knudsen. She just has like that avatar, so I think I just went past it and skipped it. But, you know, looking at Knudsen versus Marnik Man, I looked into Marnik Man, and the one thing I will say is that she has decent power on the feet, but her grappling, I think, is where she can take advantage against a girl like Knudsen. Knudsen has good takedowns. Knudsen has good top control. She's a training partner alongside Khamzat Chimaev. But at the same time, I think Marnik Man, you know, she was on the Contender Series. She got knocked out with a head kick, a brutal head kick by Bruna Brazil. And I think a lot of people are expecting Knudsen to come in here and just run right through Marnik Man. And honestly, like, that's probably what happens. But Marnik Man is tough. She's determined. She'll get in your face. She has decent grappling. She has good ability to set up submissions. And she does have power on the feet. Like, I feel like if she cracks Knudsen, she can hurt her and she can make her back up. And I think Knudsen is a girl who likes to make it technical. She likes to make it pretty. She's very powerful. She's very, very good on the feet. That lead leg head kick that she landed against Isis Verbeek on the Contender Series was vicious. And she has very good striking, good lateral movement, good in and out movement, good counter ability, her boxing, her kickboxing, the setups. It's all very, very good. And she looks like a top contender. Well, not a top contender, but a girl who can hang with the upper echelon of the women's strawweight division. She has decent grappling. We saw her go to that in the Contender Series bout. Good takedowns, good ground and pound, good ability to pass from position to position. But I do think she could get into some trouble with Marnik Man, and I think it's merely because I feel like Knudsen is kind of underestimating the ability of Man. I mean, she has good power on the feet. She has good submission attempts. She can lock up a submission if the fight hits the floor. However, if I'm going to make a pick, I mean, I'm going to go with the favorite in Josephine Knudsen. I think she's just a little bit too technical. I think she trains with the higher level competition. Obviously training at All-Stars with Chimaev. We don't know. We know when Chimaev's going to be back, but we haven't seen Chimaev in a while. But I think Knudsen is just a little bit too technical. She's too rangy. She controls the distance too well. And I think that even when Marnik Man tries to close that distance, even though that's the way you have to approach a girl who's as technical and as crisp as Knudsen, it's going to run her into big counters. It's going to run her into those lead head kicks, the rear body kicks, the 1-2s down the middle, the beautiful check hooks, the footwork, the pivots. Like, she's going to be running into things all night until I think Knudsen catches her with a big right hand, drops her, and gets her out of there. So I'm going to go with Josephine Knudsen to defeat Marnik Man via a second-round TKO. I'm happy that they signed Knudsen after that performance on the Contender Series. That was a fight where I did bet Isis Verbeek. I think I might have already touched on that, so forgive me if I did. But I thought Verbeek was going to be able to kind of dictate the fight a little bit more than she was. Land some good low kicks, punctuate the combos with low kicks, land that beautiful right check hook, and, you know, counter her stepping in, because she is a good fighter, in my opinion, is Verbeek. But, you know, it was close at certain points, but Knudsen just had the bigger moments, rocked her right away in the first round with the head kick, got some takedowns, the top control, and showcased her wrestling that I think a lot of people didn't expect in that fight. So give me Josephine Knudsen to win. I think she's a good parlay piece, but at like -4 or 500, do you really want to take it? And then on the same side, do you want to take an inside the distance prop when she could have finished Isis Verbeek on the Contender Series, but she let her back into the fight and just kind of wanted to put on a dominant performance, had multiple opportunities to finish the fight and just didn't push the pace. So I don't think an inside the distance play is the smartest on this fight in particular. I think she should get her out of there, but I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to a decision. But I'm going to take Josephine Knudsen by second round TKO. All right, excuse me. We move on to the next bout in the men's flyweight division. I think this is going to be a barn burner. It's between Edgar Chiras who came into the UFC against Tatsuro Taira, was pretty much a sacrificial lamb in most people's opinions. And although he got dominated for the majority of the fight, he threatened with a very, very tight guillotine choke, and he dropped Tatsuro Taira with a big shot early on in the fight as well. He's going up against Daniel Lacerda, who's 11-5, but 0-4 in the UFC. And when you hear an 0-4 fighter, you think, well, oh my God, well, Chiras is the side all day. There's no way Chiras is going to lose to this guy. But you have to really watch those fights, because you hear 0-4 and you think, just forget it, whatever. But Lacerda is a machine in the first round. It's just he gasses himself out trying to take out these guys and gets into wars with them, and then he gasses out, and the other guy that he's fighting is able to just push the pace a little bit more, tire him out, and get him out of there with either a submission or a TKO, because he has been finished in all of his fights inside the UFC as well, which are two pretty big red flags. You're finished in every fight that you're in the UFC. You have like 1 round of gas, 2 rounds of gas, and you gas out. But here's the thing, man. He was facing guys like CJ Vergara, Victor Altamirano. There was a few other guys as well. Let me pull this up real quick. So he was facing Jeff Molina, Francisco Figueiredo, Victor Altamirano, CJ Vergara. 2 fights he was finished in round 1. 2 fights he was finished in round 2. 3 TKO losses and 1 submission. So here's the deal. But losing to guys like Vergara, like Altamirano, like Figueiredo, those are guys who are going to get in your face, who are going to embrace the war, who are going to throw heavy volume, who are going to be in your face, nonstop gas, all gas, no breaks. This is a different kind of fight with Chiras, because Chiras is a technical striker. He has good boxing. He has good power, like he showcased in the fight against, what's his name? Tatsuro Taira. He showcased good power. I mean, he dropped the kid. But I think a lot of people are going to look at that performance and like overhype him going into this battle against Lacerda. Lacerda's good, man. He just overexposes his gas tank too early. He, quote unquote, blows his wad too early. Haha, hint, hint, wink, wink. But that's what you have to worry about. But at the same time, he's not going up against a guy in Chiras who's going to get in his face, throw heavy volume, shoot a bunch of takedowns, make it a brawl and make it a war. If somebody makes it a war, I think it's Lacerda. And I think Lacerda making this fight a war is actually going to make the fight a little bit more uncomfortable on the side of Chiras. Chiras kind of likes to pick his shots, find his openings, land good counter strikes. He has good submission attempts. He has good ability. And yeah, if the fight goes into the 3rd round, which I don't expect it to, then I would think Chiras will slow down Lacerda. Even midway point of the 2nd round, he will slow him down. He will probably get him out of there, and he will finish. I think the fight does finish, whether it's Chiras or Lacerda winning, but I think Lacerda is more dangerous than Chiras, and I think a guy in Chiras who's not going to be, like I said, in his face, throwing heavy volume. Yes, he has power. Yes, he has good technical striking, but it's not 3, 4, 5 punch combinations. He's not shooting a bunch of takedowns. He can go for submissions, but Lacerda's a good grappler as well. Lacerda can go for takedowns. Lacerda can get, jump on the back of Chiras and go for subs. And he's also 10-5 in his pro MMA career. 11-5 is Lacerda. So although Lacerda has had the worst experience in the UFC, Chiras isn't that much better on a record level, on a professional level. And, they're giving you Daniel Lacerda at a plus 200 underdog now. He opened at a plus 180. Money's come in on the side of Chiras. And from a betting perspective and a pick perspective, man, I think Lacerda's the side, because he is good. He does have good technique. He does have good power. He throws heavy punches, heavy kicks, can throw wheel kicks with beautiful technique, can grapple, can get into grappling exchanges. He will slow down and tire out with the grappling, and that's probably where Chiras can take over. But at the same time, I'm going to back Lacerda as the 2-1 underdog here. I know he's 0-4, but I think this is a get-right spot for him. Is it an easy fight? No. Is Edgar Chiras good? Yes. Does he have good technique? Yes. Does he have good submission attempts? Yes. Good grappling? Yes, of course. But he doesn't have that finishing upside, in my opinion, and he doesn't have the pressure that's going to break a guy like Lacerda early. And as long as Lacerda doesn't come in and just is as aggressive as he did before, and he tones it back just like 10-15%, I think he can piece up Chiras and get him out of there. He's got very good technical boxing, good kickboxing, good power in his combinations. He gets in your face. He has that shoot the box style of, heavy on the front leg, heavy on the front foot, all gas, no brakes. And if he can just dial it back a little bit, I think he can finish Chiras here. And that's actually what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Daniel Lacerda to defeat Edgar Chiras via a yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Let's go with it. Late first round TKO. I think he hurts him with a shot, jumps on him, starts to unload, backs up a little bit, takes it off the gas a little, finds a big shot, drops him, and gets him out of there. So I'm going with the 2-1 underdog. It's not going to be the most popular pick, but it could make me look really good if I get it right. And I do think that this is a winnable fight for him. And I think this is a get-right spot for a guy who, although he's 0-4, he's very good, very technical. It's just his gas tank and his durability isn't the best. But from a technical perspective, from a power perspective, from a finishing perspective, Lacerda is good. So give me Daniel Lacerda to defeat Edgar Chiras via late first round TKO as the plus 200 underdog. All right, next fight up is in the middleweight division between the number 14 ranked Roman Kopylov taking on Factory X's Josh Fremd. I've always been a pretty big proponent of a guy like Josh Fremd. Like, I don't love him, but I've always kind of sided with him in a lot of fights. And this is a fight where there's no chance I'm siding with him against Kopylov. Does he have good grappling? Yes. Can he lock up submissions? Yes. Is he big for the middleweight division? Uh-huh. Does he have decent technical striking? Yeah, man. Good footwork, good low kicks, good pairing up his boxing with the low kicks, good left hook. He uses his left hook very well, good combinations with the hands. He's a good technical fighter, and he's well-rounded everywhere. But he's outmatched from a technical perspective against Kopylov anywhere the fight goes, because I don't think he's going to be looking for takedowns. I don't think he's going to be looking to get in the top position and, grapple with Kopylov. And even if he tries, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, Kopylov has a 90% takedown defense, while Fremd only has a 42% takedown accuracy. And he has a 91% knockout rate, does Kopylov. Fremd has an 80% finish rate, 40% knockout, 40% submission, 20% decision. But at the same time, man, Kopylov is just way too technical for a guy like Fremd. And Fremd has that tall man defense, like a Claudio Ribeiro, like an Alexander Volkov that we touched on from this past weekend's card. He has a tall man defense where, yes, he has a decent high guard, but he's tall, he's long, he's rangy, and he kind of just keeps his head on the center line. He doesn't move his head too much. And against a sharpshooter like Kopylov, I mean, the left head kick's going to be there. The left body kick, the power kick to the body, the left straight, the check right hook, the check right hook to the left body kick, the jab, check hook, jab, check right hook, left body kick, the teeps, the straight left down the middle, the 1-2 pivot off, the cross, step off and pivot. I mean, all those punches and all those combinations are going to be there. And Fremd just fought against, who was it in his last fight? Was it not Dumas? Jamie Pickett. That's what I was touched on. He beat Jamie Pickett by decision, but the fight was way too close for my liking. Way, way too close against a guy who is not UFC level in Jamie Pickett. He's not UFC level, and honestly, that's a spot where Fremd should have kind of ran through a guy like Pickett, and he made it too close. It went to a decision. It was a unanimous decision, but Pickett had his moments, and against a guy like Kopylov, Fremd's coming in off that decision win, but it was a 15-minute fight. It wasn't that long ago, maybe like 3 weeks ago, a month ago. I think Kopylov knocks out Josh Fremd here. I think the left body kick, the left straight, the check hook, every time he walks in, he's going to be getting caught. I think he gets into an exchange, gets cracked with a left straight, gets dropped, and gets put out by Kopylov. I think Kopylov is a very dangerous fighter in this division, and I think this is a pretty good fight for him to get another style, style on another opponent like he did against Ribeiro. So give me Roman Kopylov via first round knockout over Josh Fremd. I could see it maybe making it to the second round, and Fremd is a durable guy, but he's been knocked out before, and I think he gets chinned here. That straight left hand cracks Fremd on the jaw, drops him, and knocks him out. So give me Roman Kopylov to defeat Josh Fremd via first round TKO. All right, and now we move to the main card. We already touched on the Lupi Godinez Elise Reed fight at the beginning of the podcast. We're on to a battle in the featherweight division, and a very tricky fight, I think. And I'm kind of surprised how many people are so confident in going one way, even though I'm probably going to end up going the same way by the end of this prediction. But featherweight bout, Fernando Padilla, his second fight in the UFC after that brutal first round knockout of Julian Juicy J. Erosa, taking on a man who's become synonymous with upsets in Kyle the Monster Nelson, coming off of that victory, handing Blake Bilder, the former CFFC featherweight champion, his first professional loss in MMA back at UFC 289. 289, I believe was the card. In Kyle the Monster Nelson. Nelson versus Padilla is a good fight. This is going to be a technical battle. This is going to be a solid fight. And I'm going to be honest, like, I'm picking Fernando Padilla. I am. And I picked him against Erosa. I bet him against Erosa. I bet him by finish inside the distance against Julian Erosa. And I don't think a ton of people were on him there. But I knew the durability of Erosa was always in question. And the boxing that this kid Padilla has, the ability to mix up his combinations, the speed, the technicality, this guy is a machine. He has very, very good boxing, crisp combinations, beautiful left hook. And that's his money shot, man. It's that left hook and the straight right hand down the middle. His straight punches, there's no wind up. His hooks, he mixes up everything very solidly. He mixes up things very well. He has very crisp boxing technique, and he picks his shots well. That's a problem against Kyle Nelson. I'm going to be honest. I didn't think there was any chance Nelson would win that fight against Bilder. And I was wrong, along with a lot of other people, man. And I'm going to admit it. I'll take it on the chin. Kyle Nelson killed almost every single one of my bets that whole night because I had Bilder and I had the under 2.5 in almost every play that I did. And that's what stopped me from putting one person in every bet that I had. And I changed my ways after that fight. But Kyle Nelson is a good technical fighter. He's a very tall, long, rangy guy, 5'11", with a 71-inch reach. So he's able to use that reach and distance, use those body kicks. He has a very good sneaky left hook into the same side left body kick, hiding the kick behind the hook, then chopping the right low kick behind it, lead left body kick off the feint hook, right low kick, jab, using the jab to kind of just stick it in the face of the opponent, keep them at his reach and range. But he's pretty slow. I'm going to be honest. He's not that quick. He just picks his shots well. And it worked better against a guy in Bilder who's a little bit shorter, a little bit stockier, who has to use his wrestling and his grappling. Padilla is going to have a 1 or a 2-inch height advantage and a pretty much a 5-inch reach advantage here, 76-inch reach to a 71-inch reach. And I think that spells a lot of problems for the monster. And I think the monster meets his maker here. I think Padilla can out-grapple Nelson. I think that there might be a case where Nelson pushes Padilla up against the cage in the over-under position, lands big knees, lands big shots in the clinch, and kind of wins rounds based on cage control. I think that is something that we could see from Nelson, and then maybe he breaks off, lands a few good combinations. But, this fight isn't in Canada. This fight isn't going to have the judges on his side, even though I do think Kyle Nelson beat Blake Bilder. I think it was close for the most part. And I think Padilla is just too fast. He's too crisp. He's too clean. I think he's going to clip Kyle Nelson early, drop him, and finish him. But this isn't a fight where I'm like, oh, go bet on Padilla. Like, I'll have some action on Padilla going into this weekend. But based on how badly Nelson messed me up against Blake Bilder, I wouldn't say that I'm like 100% confident, because I didn't think there was any way Nelson was going to beat Blake Bilder, and he did. So, Fernando Padilla is going to be the pick. I think he's too crisp. I think he's too clean. I think he's too fast. I think his boxing is too much for a guy who, again, uses that tall man defense, but has good technical boxing of his own right, has good kickboxing, has good counter ability, uses his clinch well, and uses his height and reach well. But I think he's outmatched here against Padilla. I think Padilla is going to catch him with that right hand, hurt him, put a combination on him, clang him with that left hook, follow up with another right hand, and drop Kyle Nelson and finish him. So I'm going to go with Fernando Padilla to defeat Kyle the Monster Nelson via second round TKO. But again, this is a fight that I'm not supremely confident in the betting side of it, because Nelson has messed me up once before, and I don't really want to give him the chance to do it again. So give me Fernando Padilla. I'm pretty confident in him to win, and give me him by a second round knockout. All right, Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Terence Mitchell. I'm going to be honest. This is a get-right spot for Rosas after that fight against Christian Rodriguez. Christian Rodriguez was able to out-grapple Rosas Jr. He was able to land better shots on the feet against the really young Rosas Jr., but that doesn't take away from the technical ability and the talent level of a guy like Rosas Jr. And going up against a guy in Terence Mitchell who just got submitted in the first round against Cameron Simon. I think it was a submission, I'm pretty sure. Got submitted by Cameron Simon in the first round. That was a fight where I saw some people backing Terence Mitchell. I don't know why you would. And this is another fight where even though he's like a 4-1 underdog, I would never tell you to put money on Terence Mitchell because I think he gets ran over in the first round. He did very well on the Alaskan regional scene, but that was the Alaskan regional scene. And this is a bantamweight fight. He fought in the flyweight division on the Ultimate Fighter, and Kai Kara-France sent him to the shadow realm with an overhand right. He got submitted in the first round by Cameron Simon. I think this is another fight where Rosas Jr. might not shoot the takedown immediately. I feel like he's going to come out a little bit more composed, be a little light on the feet, use his jab. But the minute that Terence Mitchell commits on a shot, he's going to duck under, double leg, shuck him to the side, jump on his back, and lock up a rear naked choke. I think he's going to submit him in the first round. I think it's first round submission. I think he gets Terence Mitchell to overcommit on a shot. He shoots under the punch, shucks him to the side off the double leg attempt, jumps on his back, body triangle, rear naked choke, and you wrap it up and we go to the next one. So give me Raul Rosas Jr. to defeat Terence Mitchell via first round submission. I think Rosas Jr. inside the distance, it's probably going to be juiced to who knows what the price is going to be on that. I would say if you're going to play it, Rosas is definitely a parlay piece if you really want to play like the chalky side. Based on what we've talked about so far, I feel like Knudsen, Rosas Jr., and Kopylov is like a good chalky parlay based on every fight we've touched on so far. But I'm not going to tell you to go run and bet on a guy who's like a 6-1 favorite or 5-1 favorite. But if you take Rosas Jr. in round one, you'll probably get even money or some plus money. I think that's a good play. I think Rosas Jr. by submission in round one is a good play. I also think Rosas Jr. in round 1 or 2 is another good play. I feel like he definitely gets the finish, but for the safer play, I would say Rosas Jr. in round 1 or 2. Then I would say Rosas by submission. Then I would say Rosas Jr. by submission in round 1. But I don't see any way Terence Mitchell wins this fight, and he's pretty much a sacrificial lamb for Rosas Jr. to get back on track here because the kid is talented. He has a lot of upside, very good grappling, very good wrestling. And the kid doesn't quit, even though his cardio kind of faded against C-Rod. He's not a quitter, and that's something you'll learn, and I think he's going to run through Terence Mitchell here. All right, and now we move to the co-main event of the evening in my favorite fight on the card, aside from the main event. The fight I'm probably the most excited to talk about, a welterweight battle between Kevin Trailblazer Holland, the number 13 ranked welterweight in the division, taking on the number 14 ranked Jack Della Maddalena, who's undefeated in the UFC. And this is his biggest test of his career, coming off of that lackluster performance in many people's opinions against a short notice replacement in Basil Hafez. Kevin Holland, 25-9. Jack Della Maddalena, 14-2. Listen, I know everybody's going to take that fight against Hafez and, go against him just based on merit going into this fight against Holland because Holland's more talented than Hafez, and Holland can out-grapple him. Holland's longer, taller, rangier. He can grab his neck. He can lock up submissions. We saw in the fight with Jack Della Maddalena and Ramazan Ameev, I believe, he almost got caught in that Darce choke early in the fight, was able to survive and then TKO him. But here's the deal. I think that fight against Basil Hafez, even though realistically Della Maddalena should have ran through a guy like that, it was a short notice replacement. It was like his third opponent for the entire card, and he still looked good. Like he had some takedown issues, some wrestling issues, getting taken down. But here's another thing. People are really like, oh, well, if he got taken down and out-wrestled by a guy like Hafez, well, Kevin Holland's going to out-wrestle him. He's going to take him down, out-grapple him. Let me tell you something. Kevin Holland is a good defensive wrestler now. He worked on his defensive wrestling because people kept taking him down. He's a good submission artist based off of people shooting bad takedowns against him and allowing him to grab their neck and lock them in a submission. When do you really see Kevin Holland shooting a double leg? Can he scramble well? Yes. Does he have good jiu-jitsu? Yes. Can he lock up submissions? Yes. Can he grab your neck because he's so long, tall, and rangy? Yes. Does he have a good guard game? Yes. But is he a good offensive wrestler? Fuck no. Holland is not a good offensive wrestler. He's a good defensive wrestler. Jack Della Maddalena is not going to want to wrestle in this fight. He's going to want to keep it on the feet. He's going to want to box up Kevin Holland. Now, you look at the stats, Kevin Holland's going to have a 4-inch height advantage and an 8-inch reach advantage. That's a big deal. But Della Maddalena is always at a reach advantage for the most part. Now, this is different because Holland's the longest and, rangiest fighter that Della Maddalena's ever faced and the most powerful fighter that Della Maddalena has ever faced. So with that reach, with that distance, the straight 1-2s down the middle, the jab, the check hook, the right hook, landing combinations and punches at awkward angles. Yeah, Kevin Holland can catch Madalena and hurt him, I'm not going to sit here and say that he can't. But when it comes to who's the better striker on the feet, it's Della Maddalena. And in a fight that's more than likely going to play out on the feet because I don't see Holland shooting takedowns offensively, and I don't see Della Maddalena shooting takedowns offensively, which kind of takes away the grappling game of Holland if you're not going to have Madalena shooting takedowns, which would open up his offensive jiu-jitsu because he's not an offensive wrestler or an offensive grappler in terms of getting takedowns, controlling position, and then setting up subs. It's off of the opponents making mistakes with the takedowns and catching their neck or taking their back or Darce choking them or winning a scramble. I think this is mainly going to be a striking match. And I would say Kevin Holland's the better kicker, but the better management of technical punches, the better technical fighter on the feet, the better angles, the better defensive fighter on the feet is Della Maddalena. And Della Maddalena has fought a man who's very similar to Kevin Holland in Randy Rude Boy Brown. Use long, rangy attacks, stay on the outside, low kicks, teeps to the body, controlling the range, using the jab. Della Maddalena trapped him up against the cage, switched between orthodox and southpaw to box him in, and landed a big right hook on his chin, hurt him, dropped him, jumped on him, pretty much TKO'd him, but the ref didn't stop it and then got a submission in the first round. Now, I think Kevin Holland has more power than Randy Brown. I think he's more aggressive than Randy Brown, which is going to give Holland some advantages in certain aspects. But for the most part, man, I think Della Maddalena is going to finish Kevin Holland. I think he has better technical ability on the feet. He's going to be able to crash that distance and range against a fighter who uses kind of like a bum-off version of a Philly shell. Philly shell block on the other side, control with the lead hand. Doing that against a fighter who can close the distance, cut you off, cut the cage off, and land vicious combinations from orthodox or southpaw, who can switch between orthodox and southpaw, who has some of the best boxing in terms of pure boxing in the UFC, aside from Sean Strickland and a few other fighters like Rob Font, like Piotr Jan. Della Maddalena is a monster. And, I know he lost to Wonder Boy in Kevin Holland, and people are like, well, that was a different kind of fighter. He fought very awkward and things like that. He did, but a lot of the times the hands were what really hurt Kevin Holland. Like, yeah, the kicks were causing some issues for him as well, and the kicks to the body, but man, he was getting boxed up by Wonder Boy. And I think Della Maddalena, if he can close that distance and get on the inside, he's going to rip that body apart. He's going to rip up top to the head. And I don't think Kevin Holland's a quitter, but I don't think he's going to have a choice, man. I think Della Maddalena is going to switch orthodox and southpaw, get that outside foot on Kevin Holland, close the distance, rip to the body, rip up top to the head, right hook, left hook, right uppercut, bing, 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 boom, rip the body shot, touch, 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 uppercut, boom, rip the body shot off the uppercut, bang, uppercut to the head, bang, rip the body. And I think he's going to catch him with a shot on the chin and put him out. I'm going to go with Jack Della Maddalena to defeat Kevin Holland via a second round knockout. I think this is a fight where a lot of people are backing Holland because of the competition level, but I think this is a fight that's very, very winnable for Della Maddalena, and they are taking too much stock in the grappling and jiu-jitsu of Kevin Holland. So give me Jack Della Maddalena to close off that distance and range and crack Kevin Holland on the chin, knocking him out in round 2. Jack Della Maddalena via second round knockout. And now we get to the main event of the evening for the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship between the champion and the woman who upset the quote-unquote GOAT in Alexa Grasso, defending her title in the main event of UFC Noche, or Noche UFC, against the former champion and Valentina the Bullet Shevchenko. Alexa Grasso comes into the fight 16 victories, 3 defeats, taking on Valentina Shevchenko at 23 victories and 4 losses. Listen, man, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I picked Grasso to beat Valentina the first time. I picked her to win by submission. I picked her to win by a rear naked choke, and I picked her to do it in round 4. Did I bet on Grasso? Yes. Did I bet on Grasso by submission? No, I didn't. Did I bet on Grasso inside the distance? No, I did not. Did I bet on Grasso in round 4 by sub? No, I didn't, and I should have, because I would probably have a hell of a lot of money right now. But at the end of the day, let's look at the fight from a stylistic perspective. Valentina is overall, in most people's opinions, going to be the better fighter. She has better distance control, better range management. She's stronger in the clinch. She has better takedowns. She has better kicks to the head, to the body, to the legs. She's a better counter striker. All those things are pretty much correct, but people discredit the technical ability of Alexa Grasso so much. They counted her out the first time. They've counted her out in a lot of her fights in the UFC. She's very good. She's got very good boxing. She can match the stance of Valentina as she fights out of southpaw. Matches the stance. Comes forward. Right hook. Meets that right hook with the straight punch right down the middle and beats it every time. Straight punch right down the middle. Bang. Caught Valentina on the chin. She catches her with the jab. She catches her with the straight left. She switches orthodox to southpaw. She's very technical and methodical in the way that she sets up her game. She has good jiu-jitsu off of her back, good scrambling. She was able to turn with the sidekick of Valentina, which is the same thing that Taila Santos did, and that allowed Valentina to give up her back, and she took her back and submitted her. Now, I think if Valentina comes into this fight, she's going to be more light on the front foot. She's going to be looking for more front kicks. I think teep kicks to the body, front kicks to the knee, probably that left body kick. I don't think she's going to spin as much because she knows the danger now in allowing Grasso to jump on her back, grab her back like a spider monkey, and choke her out. But I still think Grasso wins this fight. I think Valentina at this point is 35, 36 years old? She's become more and more beatable in her last 3-4 fights. Like even the fight against Jennifer Maya took a round off of her with the takedown, with the wrestling. In the Taila Santos fight, many people believe Santos beat Valentina, should have won that decision because of her wrestling, because of her jiu-jitsu, because of the top control. Valentina has never been a good nail on the ground, but she's been a very good hammer. She doesn't have the best defensive grappling if the fight hits the mat. She does a lot of head and arm throws. She does a lot of hip tosses. She does a lot of clinch trips. And those can work. And she did take down Grasso a few times. And it was pretty easy for Valentina to get the takedowns. But even when Valentina Shevchenko got those takedowns, Grasso worked up, was, scrambling. She was looking. She wasn't settling for position too much. She was always trying to fight out. She was always trying to, shuck her hips in or out, shrimp her hips, turn and give up her back, turn back to her back on the mat, looking to do sweeps. I mean, even when she got taken down, she was always being active. She locked up a guillotine choke at the end of the 3rd round before she locked up the rear naked choke in round 4 where she claimed the title. She was able to get out of that crucifix position, spin into Valentina, and then jump on the neck to be like, hey, even if you take me down, I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to be here. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to get discouraged. And a lot of the time, Shevchenko beats girls before they even get into the octagon. And the minute that these other girls have success, the minute Valentina has success, like the other girls seem to kind of wilt and break under the pressure. I don't see a girl like Alexa Grasso breaking under the pressure that Valentina has. Now, can Valentina win this fight? Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that Valentina has no shot. She does. She can use her takedown. She can use that crucifix position like she's used so many times before. She can look to land ground and pound. She might use her wrestling a little bit more than she has in other fights. She might look to chop the low kicks. I think that's a good weapon for Valentina, would be the low kicks and the body kicks. Low kicks, mid kicks, high kicks, no spinning kicks. Take that away from your game. Check hook. Use multi-shot combinations, not just picking one shot. And that can make the fight a little bit more winnable in the case of Valentina reclaiming the title. But I think Alexa Grasso is going to get it done again. I just think Valentina has shown chinks in her armor in her last few fights. I think that she is at the age now, 34 or 35, 36. Like, she's going to progressively start to regress in every fight. And that's not taking away from the fact that Grasso beat her the last time, but I just don't see Valentina putting on that dominating performance and, you know, getting her title back. I think this might be the last time we see Valentina Shevchenko inside the octagon. I'm going to be honest, because I think Grasso's going to beat her again. And I think not only is she going to beat her again, but I think she's going to do so pretty dominantly. Like, I could definitely see her giving up takedowns, but again, takedown defense is something that you can work on and, you know, improve vastly in your next fight. You know, and Valentina is a good wrestler, but she doesn't shoot traditional takedowns. A lot of the times it's, like I said, head and arm throws, clinch trips, body lock takedowns. Like, she's not going to shoot a double or a single. So I think Grasso's going to be, you know, defensively responsible there. And let's say Valentina goes for a head and arm throw and misses it, and Grasso's able to sneak her head out. She's right on the back again, and she locks up that body triangle, goes for the neck, and we might get another rear naked choke submission from Grasso. It would not surprise me in the slightest if Grasso's able to find the way to the back against Valentina again and submit her. I would not be surprised at all. I'm going to go with the safer pick, and I'm going to go with Grasso to win by a decision. I think we see that in a lot of title fights where in the first fight, if it's a very impressive finish from a fighter, usually the second fight, even if it's an upset, they win by a decision. You can look at Leon Edwards against Usman. I mean, knocked him out in the 5th round, then went to a decision but dominated him. You've got, what's her name, Pena and Nunes, even though Nunes got the title back, but pretty much dominant win for Pena in the first fight. Second fight goes to a decision, but a dominant win for Nunes. You've got fights. I mean, there's a couple other ones. Why can I not think of it right now? Rose Namajunas against Zhang Weili, knocked her out with a head kick the first fight, went to a decision in the second one. I think that's technically like a pattern we see in a lot of these fights. So I'm going to go with Alexa Grasso as the underdog again. Not nearly as juicy as a number as you could before, but I think Grasso on the money line or Grasso by submission or decision is a good play for this card. Double method of victory, submission or decision, probably get like plus 250 on that, I would think, somewhere around there. But I'm going to take the champion again to remain and still. I just think she gets it done again. I think that she's a bad matchup for Valentina. And even though Valentina had success in the first fight, I think the fighter who's going to make more improvements is going to be Grasso, and I think that spells disaster for Valentina. So give me Alexa Grasso to retain the UFC Women's Flyweight Championship via a 48-47 unanimous decision over Valentina the Bullet Shevchenko. All right, that's going to be it for my UFC Noche UFC Grasso versus Shevchenko preview, predictions, and breakdown. This podcast is available anywhere you get your audio podcasts. That includes Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Breaker, Stitcher, and many, many more. This podcast will be uploaded in its entirety, including edits and photos, on my YouTube channel, which is the same name as the podcast, at the Touch 'em Up Podcast. I'm your host, Double M, and I'm out. Let's enjoy the fights this weekend and make some money in the process.